Hi, Selena.
Hi. So good to
So
be here.
I know this is so much fun. We met at a business mastermind in LA, what, over a year ago now?
Yeah, I think a little bit over a year ago, like May of 2023.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we realized that we both were into astrology and we been wanting to have this conversation for a while.
Yeah.
I think it's so fun that we're doing it and then we're recording it. So maybe that it could help someone or they could get something out of just us having a fun conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I think this will be a good, insightful session. I have no idea what I'm getting into, so we'll dive in.
Well, I love your bravery to not even know what we're going to unpack here, but the fact that you're just showing up and you're like, okay, let's unpack while we record.
Uh,
I love that. And so before we begin, I just want to introduce myself for all the people that are watching this. My name is Danette Covarrubias, and I am a coach, and I help carve you into the person that lives the life and the relationships that you've always wanted down to the last detail. Um, I'm sitting in my home office with this view here that I manifested. Too bad I can't manifest better Wi-Fi because my camera always gets stuck. And Selena, do you want to introduce yourself?
yeah, so my name is Selena Fang, and in the last few years, I have been a marketing coach helping service providers, coaches to launch their business and market themselves online. And I would say the last year, currently, I'm just exploring, figuring out what I want to do next. I'm not currently taking on any clients, but still very much, still sharing content and going through documenting kind of my journey throughout the last few years from entrepreneurship into now kind of taking a sabbatical. So yeah, that's what's been going on in my world.
Actually, that's kind of how this conversation started because I actually love the content you share. You always give really deep insights, and I'm like, wow, that's so good, Selena. And then you're just talking about it's such a different experience when you're on a sabbatical, but you could still receive money. That
Yeah.
was so insightful for me. So that's it kind of reminded me of what you're doing right now. You're on a sabbatical.
Mhm.
So cool. Okay, so why before we're gonna do a little mini reading on each other. So we exchange
Okay.
birth date
Yeah.
information, and then I'm gonna just give you a little brief. I mean, we're not going super deep because this is just on video and quick.
Yeah.
But we're gonna do a brief mini reading on each other. And then, but before we do that, we wanted to ask the question and answer the question how to use astrology in a practical way.
Mhm.
And so that's a question for both of us, and we're both going to answer. Selena, do you want to answer that first? How do you use astrology practically?
Yeah, I would say, for me, this has been an experiment that I'm going through myself as well. I'm definitely not perfect at trying to implement astrology into my day to day. But I would say what has worked really well for me was looking at elements of my charts that I felt the most connected to and asking myself why that is, and just really trying to live like the highest version of that sign. So for example, I think one of the biggest things that I remember looking at my charts, especially like related to career, was I have a lot of Aquarius energy when it comes to my career because that sits on my 10th house. And so I just try to look at, what are like the traits of someone with Aquarius like energy that's like shows that she's living at her highest version. And then also look at the shadow side because with every sign, with every like type of astrology sign, there's always the shadow and the gifts. So I like to compare like, am I living at the gift level or like the highest light level or at the shadow? And then kind of readjust myself through the process as I'm navigating through life. And of course, like there's only one part, your astrology chart has like different layers of it. So, like when it comes to relationships, I'm not applying the same like Aquarius like energy. There's like, slightly different ways that I approach it. And then another way that has worked really well for me is like I know my signs, I know my charts makeup, and then I also like try to let go of that and live my life and see just like how I am naturally without letting the chart like dictate or define like my capabilities. So like a little bit of knowing it to serve you and then letting go to just like live your life as you would.
Mm. That's so much wisdom, what you
Mhm.
said. I really love the idea that you use it as a tool and not as something that dictates your future
Yeah.
or your day-to-day emotions.
Mhm.
Did I hear that right? Is that
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
said?
you got it exactly right. Yeah.
I love that. Um, cool, very cool. Can I ask one follow-up question with that is um where do you just go to Google or whatever and say like what are the shadow side of Aquarius and what's the higher, how do you know what the shadow side is?
Yeah, I would say I've actually like bought a lot of books, throughout this year of my sabbatical. I mean, the last 2 years really, I just bought a lot of old astrology books that has like, very deep information because you can find stuff on Google, but I like to go to the source if possible when it comes to these type of ancient teachings. So
Mhm.
then I kind of have a good sense of at least like for the signs that I like care about. I don't know every single sign, but like for Aquarius, I know that one of the shadow sides would be like stubbornness and very rebellious to a fault. Like sometimes just being too rebellious and not understanding like what's going on. And then yeah, so there's other stuff, but I've just read a lot of old books and then using that information to like then look for stuff online if I need to. But I would say, yeah, it's a combination of books and sometimes AI can help like a little bit to just like help me remind the information that I already know, like more so to like repeat. I would say reaffirm. All right, I remember this from like the book that I read.
Yeah, I noticed that AI has been helping me as well, like to
Mhm.
understand a certain energy a little bit deeper.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's so funny that you say like that you read these books to explain this ancient wisdom. I
yeah.
agree. I buy a lot of books too. And but what's funny about that is you said like one of the shadow sides of Aquarius is that they're a rebel. And
Yeah,
it's as me as a sun Aquarius,
yeah.
I had to spend so much time and years to figure out how to not. I was a rebel without a cause for so many
Uh,
years.
wow.
I was just like, oh, everyone's going left. I'm definitely going right for no reason.
Yeah.
And so it has taken so much time to figure out that part of me. And so
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. That's cool that you said
Yeah,
that.
I studied a lot about Aquarius because, as I took my sabbatical this last 2 years, I had to I almost like looked at my chart to find meaning through the sabbatical. It's like, okay, I must be going through this for a reason. Like, what is this reason? What am I actually meant to do? And I think knowing more about astrology, at least like for my 10th house, helped me a lot in understanding that, there's a big transit going on in my 10th house. And like, this was probably the time that my career was going to get reinvented in many ways.
Mhm. Very interesting. Very cool.
Mhm.
For me, the way that I start off with how I use astrology in a practical way is I look at the kind of relationships I want to have with
Mhm.
myself and with others, and I use astrology to help me with that. And the main way that I do that, well, to start, not the main, but the start of it is I actually look at the elements, which
Mhm.
is fire, air, water, and land.
Mhm.
And I look at those elements through nature. So like I pay attention to like how is the sun hitting this plant right now?
Oh,
How does the sun make the plant grow? How
yeah.
does the water hit the bay or hit the sand on on the sea
Yeah.
and give it life, but also every time the water goes back, it takes a little bit of sand with it.
Mhm.
So it helps me understand, for example, how like a land sign and a water sign might interact. The
Yeah.
water feeds the land, but it also takes a little bit back with it every time.
Yeah.
Or like how if there's a fire and then air comes,
Mhm.
what happens? A wildfire could spread.
Yeah.
But also the air is cold by itself, so the fire heats up the air. So I
Mhm.
know if I look at an air sign like Aquarius, Libra, or Gemini, I know they're cold. in which is true. Like I know as an Aquarius, I'm one of the coldest people. I could be the coldest person,
Wow.
but I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
You know, I use it when it serves me, and then
Yeah.
I don't use it when it doesn't serve me. It's just
Mhm.
a tool for self-awareness.
Yeah.
And so that's how I really like to use astrology is knowing the energy of the elements so that I could be like, what kind of husband do I want when I manifest my husband? I knew I wanted an Aries because I broke it down. I broke down all the different zodiac signs. And then I said, I wrote on paper, he's going to be an Aries. Sure enough, my husband landed in my lap. He was born April 13th, right in the middle of Aries season.
That is amazing.
And well, and it starts off, oh, I use astrology for a lot of that, not by saying, oh, the transits or today's a good day to get
Yeah.
married or
Yeah.
today is a good day to speak or we're in retrograde. I don't actually pay attention to any of that. I pay
Wow.
attention to the dynamics between the elements
Yeah.
and what I want. Like I realized, okay, I looked at my chart and I was like, okay, so I'm fire, air, earth, and these. Well, what kind of man will enhance this? What kind of man will shake this? And then
Mhm.
also, what kind of man will I enhance? And what will he need to have for me to like not enhance?
Yeah.
And that's how it got me clear on what kind of partner I wanted.
That's so cool. I guess I never looked at it in that sense. It's my work has been very much like self-focused, but I can see how helpful it could be to call in the relationships you want, not just like partner, but like friends, mentors, or like business partners. I think that could all be really useful.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not just relationships. I use it for like everyone, like people I work with. You know, my clients, I use it in my coaching. Do you use astrology in your coaching?
Not since I took the sabbatical, because before the sabbatical, I was very much like strategy focus, wasn't super into the spiritual side of things. So yeah, not as of now.
Okay, that makes sense. I could see why you would do that in your chart too. I can't wait
Okay.
to dig into that.
Yeah.
And then so I guess that's a good time to transition. Let's do like a
Okay.
little mini reading. Do you want to read me first?
Yeah, actually, I need to pull up your chart.
Okay.
So give me 1 second. I actually don't think I've ever read anyone. So this would
Oh,
be super
cool.
fun.
I'm your first. It feels so good.
Okay, I'm going to Astro Chart. Which website do you usually use?
I like oh, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I clicked on my other screen. I use AstroSeek,
Oh, okay. I
which
use a different one, but I think they're about the same.
yeah, there's so many you could use. And I AstroSeek was the first one I started using and I never got out of it.
Okay, let me go to.
By
um,
the way, I wanted to tell you, I love your last name.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just so like
Uh,
cool.
I've never had someone compliment my last name, at least like not often. So thank you. I
Oh,
haven't heard that before. I'm gonna put that in 1996. Okay, I have it up now. Let me just make sure. So let's see. I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, the host isn't allowed multiple presenters sharing for this meeting.
oh, let me I
Maybe I can, let's see.
I'm sure I can give you permission.
Okay, yeah,
See.
let me try again now. Hmm.
Let's see. It show oh wait, there. Now you can now try.
Okay, let's see. Let me see which one. Hmm. All right. Are you able to see this?
Ooh, look at that pretty thing.
Yeah, I just really like this website because I think it's simple and
Yeah.
has everything. It doesn't have like any explanations. It's just this is what it is, and then I try to give my own like meaning to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like it.
So just from what I'm seeing here, I think okay, so your moon is in the ninth house in Taurus. That tells me, at least like for Taurus, I think you value stability and structure a lot. And what makes you feel like safe or emotionally fulfilled is a foundation that you work on. Like, no matter if it's like work or relationships or family, I think foundation is important for you. And in the ninth house, I guess that's related to higher learnings, education, travel. So maybe you put a lot of focus there. Like it makes you feel very emotionally fulfilled when you work on things that you want to learn. Or, maybe it's like astrology or anything that you feel like you're increasing your knowledge in some sense. Okay, that's the moon. And then your sun is in the sixth house. Okay. I do know that Aquarius sun, because I have a lot of planets in Aquarius. I think, let me go actually see your whole chart. Okay, so you have Mercury and Sun in Aquarius. So kind of similar to like my career traits. You're stubborn, perhaps, in your own ways. You're a little bit detached. Is that right? And
I- I've worked on it. I worked on to not be detached, but my natural element is detached.
yeah, and you're straightforward in the way you think and communicate to other people. So like when I see Mercury and Sun in the same signs, it means that the way you process information and your higher mind or your ego actually works in parallel. There's not like conflict because it's in the same sign.
Mm.
Um, okay, and then you have most of your planets in like the lower quadrants.
Hmm.
So what that tells me is you're very focused on your inner relationships with yourself and other people versus like, at least like here in the chart, it's more inward focus in this lifetime for you.
Hmm. You know, it's funny you bring that up because I've read a lot of charts now, and eventually I noticed why is nobody's chart where it's all at the bottom like mine? Why
Oh,
is mine so at the bottom?
yeah.
And then so I started digging into that, and then there's been a couple different resources that said a couple of different things, but essentially it's saying you're focused on your inner world.
Yeah.
And when it's all on top, that's why you see a lot of famous people with
Uh,
stuff on top because they're
yeah.
focused on external stuff, like external. And I'm like, damn it. Why is it? I don't want, oh my God, I want some on top.
Yeah, no, but you have your north node. Is that the north node? Let me see.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think like you have really like big planets on top, which probably
Hmm.
balances out the energy. Is like your moon, your Chiron. It's like a lot of your lessons will come from your outer experiences.
Yeah, which sucks because all my other planets want to be inward. So it's like,
Yeah. You're just probably living through like a good balance where you probably like naturally want to be inwards, but the lessons you're meant to learn,
Mhm.
especially like related to career, perhaps will be more outward facing.
Totally. And then you know what else I learned with that because of that? All my lessons are learned in public. All
Oh,
my shame is learned in public. All
yeah.
because my moon and Chiron are both at the same spot. I realize that all my like insecurities are
Yeah.
viewed from everybody. It's not like I could just like go
Oh,
home and let only me see it.
no, that's really interesting. Yeah,
Mhm.
because Chiron, I know, is like our teacher or wounded healer,
Yeah.
right? So wherever Chiron is placed in the house or in like your chart is like the area where you'll get kind of your healing. Like you'll get the most probably triggers, but also like where you'll get the most healing. throughout
Oh,
time.
that's so with Chiron being in Taurus with my moon and
Mhm.
my MC,
Yeah.
how do you interpret that?
I think so. Okay. Chiron is in 27. Oh, okay. So your Chiron in midheaven that is actually like right exactly at the same point. So that tells me that yeah, your career, like pretty much what you said, your career is where you'll get the most, like you'll learn the most lessons related to like the healing that you need to go through in this lifetime. And it's very public facing because it's right on your midheaven. So it's whatever you go through will probably be known in some ways
Hmm.
because that's part of your path, perhaps.
Hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Does
Very,
that
very.
suck?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're probably meant to share that with like so many people, which is like such a blessing in itself. Like you're probably
Mhm.
meant to impact a lot of people because if you're meant to share it, like people probably need to hear it. So
Yeah,
I see
that's
definitely like fame somewhere here. If like you're meant to have a stage to share these lessons, whether it's big or small, I think it's definitely showing up there.
hmm that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course. Was there, I guess like when you look at your chart, what do you feel like is like the most what you really resonate with like throughout your life? Just like what's always been true for you.
It's interesting because I've used my chart to self-study.
Mhm.
And then I'm like, when I self-study, I go through this period where, like, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on this thing that's hurting me. And
Yeah,
then I get obsessed with it. And then
yeah,
I work on it for years. And then I'm like, okay, now that's at bay. I've done a lot on that. Now let me jump to the next thing.
yeah,
So it's almost like I've been jumping from energy to energy from
yeah.
studying my chart.
Oh, okay.
And but the one thing that um and this is a question I wanted to ask you actually, now that we bring this up. The one thing I realized why I started studying my chart, and I wanted to ask you, like, what got you in it? Like, why did you start studying your chart? And for
Mhm.
me, I realized if because Chiron and my moon is in Taurus,
Mhm.
and Taurus is all about worth and value.
Yeah.
And so I realized that I was in the womb, I was inherited low self-worth.
Oh,
It's not from, I'm not saying that putting my mother down at all. My mother is amazing and loves me and she's an amazing human. It's
mhm.
my path
Okay.
to experience low self-worth from a young girl. And because of that, I never knew what inherent worth meant. I never knew what it meant to have self-worth unless somebody else validated it, showing me I'm worthy. So
Mm,
like I was looking for all this external for people to show me, yes, you did a good job. Yes, Danette, that's good. Because that was a cue to me, oh, I'm worthy.
yeah.
And because of that, it made me look at my chart because I don't know if you've ever heard this. A mirror is what, a mirror shows our physical image, but
Yeah.
our chart shows our inner image.
I haven't heard that before, but that's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. I forgot where I read it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can't give credit to where I read it. I don't remember.
Okay.
Um, but the what I realized is no wonder why I was looking at my chart because I was trying to understand what made me worthy.
Mhm.
And I'm pleased to say that after all these years, I'm 40, I've barely recently, for the first time, really experienced what self-worth meant
Mhm.
without anybody showing me or telling me or doing anything to show me I'm worthy.
Aw,
And I know it's
love
amazing. It's like,
for you.
wow, this is what that is. It's so cool.
How powerful is it to like, right, like look through your chart and then go through the inner work? But it's
Mhm.
almost like a compass for you where it's like, okay, like how do I actually become like the best version of myself and sort of have a roadmap, but not feel tied to but this is like everything. But there could be so much more.
I agree. I think the key is have it not be everything, because if you're tied to that, it's just doesn't, I don't, it's weird, first of all. And then, and then it's like it doesn't really serve its purpose. It's just a tool.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioning that from the very beginning of our video is so important. So I'm so glad you said that. But for you, what made you get into astrology?
Yeah, I would say this was probably influenced by my one of my business mentors that I worked with like a few years ago, Scott Olford. I think we were just like chatting, and then he kept talking about like he has an astrologer to help him plan like certain dates to like timing purposes. And then I'm like, okay, like if Scott uses it and like he's so successful, then I'm sure it's valuable. And I think
Mhm.
like Juliana too mentioned
Mhm.
that she had an astrologer. So I was like, okay, there's definitely a pattern here where people that I respect and that I've hired to help me with business and life, they all have astrologers. So I then booked a reading with an astrologer in San Francisco. I went to his basement and got my reading. I think it was summer of 2022. I got one reading, an intro reading, and I was like, wow, so interesting. I didn't even know that like there were different houses. I didn't even know I had three
Mm.
signs. At that point, I was so new. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Capricorn. But then I went into the reading learning about, oh, never mind. I'm like, there's so much more. So that was probably when I started like I wanted to learn more about it from like a business purpose because I wanted to grow my business, make more money, and then I just got like a whole something completely different. It was like a life discovery tool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That reminds me, you notice how much energy I have in Capricorn because you said I thought I was just a Capricorn. It
Yeah.
reminds me like I have so much energy in Capricorn.
Yeah.
I have two main planets in Capricorn, and then as well as it's my MC, the original MC, or it's not the original MC. So Capricorn is the 10th house. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so for me to look at my 10th house to see what my MC is, I need to look also where Capricorn's laying at,
Yeah. Yeah.
which, and so that's an important just for me to grow a business and um, to be out in the world. It's important I understand my Capricorn energy. So that's
Yeah.
the other thing.
It's super
Um,
interesting because you have your Jupiter, right? This is
mhm.
Venus.
Yeah, yeah.
No, is this Mercury?
Yeah, that's Mercury, but I think it's like on the cusp of Aquarius and a
Oh,
Capricorn.
right, right. So you have like two main planets here.
Hmm.
Wow. No, this is super cool.
Yeah. You ready to switch
Yeah,
seats? Okay. Um,
I'm nervous.
so I looked at yours before we got on and I didn't go super deep, so I want to make sure that, as you know with astrology, if it doesn't land for you, then just ignore it.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just, and if it feels like, oh yeah, I feel that in my body, just look into it if you want.
Yeah. Okay.
You know how it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah.
Um, but what I found really interesting, you're right. When the first thing when I saw, I was like, oh my God, look at all that Aquarius energy. It was just boom, all up there. I'm like, that's so cool. And then right away I was like, oh, that makes sense why she likes astrology too, because I don't know if you've heard this, but Aquarius is the sign for astrology.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And
Mhm.
so it makes sense why you might dig deeper into it. That was the first thing I noticed. But then what really drew my attention is that there was three things that really drew my attention on what I look at. And that was you had Lilith in Libra, you
Mhm.
have Chiron in the seventh house, but
Yeah.
your moon is in Libra too.
Mhm.
And I thought those things were interesting because what that tells me is that your emotional stability you need partnerships for emotional stability,
Yeah.
but also because Chiron is in the seventh house and Lilith is in Libra, it shows like a, a tendency for codependency and
Mm.
instability in relationships. So
Mm.
it's like a lot of trauma in relationships, yet it's the one thing that brings you fulfillment.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be with a romantic partner. We're just talking about in relationships, but very much so in a romantic partnership as well. Just because the seventh house where your moon is, or no, the seventh house where Chiron's at is about marriage.
Yeah.
So it also shows me that it's a lot of repeated challenges over power in relationships.
Mhm.
And then also like balance in relationships could be really important to you. And also that you might want this balance in your relationships, but in this fairness, but you're never gonna get it until you create it on your own.
Yeah.
Because like you might want the other person to play fair and you
Mhm.
might want the other person to like be balanced with you, but it's just never gonna happen until you learn it inward first.
Yeah.
And that's because those are the lessons you're supposed to learn. Just,
Mhm.
not because of anything else other than it's not because like you're doing it wrong or you're thinking wrong or you're feeling wrong. It's
Yeah.
just because you're on a path to learn these things.
Mhm.
And I do believe wherever our hard challenges are in this lifetime, like as you saw for me, it's my career.
Mhm.
For you, it's partnerships.
Mhm.
And I think because whenever it's really hard for us, we have to put deeper energy, deeper insight, deeper ourselves and love into it. And
Yeah.
we end up becoming really, really good at it because of that.
Mhm.
And so that just shows me that I don't even know. Are you in a relationship? I mean, it doesn't
Not
matter.
not at the moment, but what you said definitely, because I was in a relationship for 5 years, like in my early 20s, like 20 to 25. And there was definitely more codependence there. I mean, it was like my first real relationship. So I definitely see traits of that like playing out. And I think as I'm navigating through like adult dating in, past like 25, I think I'm seeing more of my lessons. Because I don't really get bothered by like career stuff. Like, oh, there's very little things in my life that really bother me as much as like dating or like relationships. I feel like I've nailed pretty much, like, not like I've nailed everything, but I know I can handle a lot in other sides of my life. But when it comes to relationships, I definitely am the most vulnerable, and also the part where I feel like I want the most power, but sometimes it's
Ooh, didn't you hear me say the word power?
yeah, 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 I did.
Wow, yeah. And that's because you have Chiron and Scorpio in the seventh house, which
Yeah.
it shows me there's like a struggle of power
Mm,
in partnerships.
yeah.
And then there's like a struggle of like I said, balance
Yeah.
and maybe expectation of like playing fair
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And that's so crazy you said I feel like I figured every area of my life out besides this partnership thing. And that's literally what it shows me in your chart. Like that's where all the energy, all the challenges are. And
Mhm.
that's how I feel about I figured like I manifested my husband
Yeah.
like for perfect man, but my career
Mhm.
has been, I've struggled so much. I'm
Mhm.
barely at 40. Okay. I am barely starting to thrive. Like I'm barely starting to like see
Mhm.
what I'm capable of.
Mhm.
And that's because we see it in my chart too. That's
Mhm.
so interesting, isn't it?
It is.
Um, the other thing that I saw is like, um, like you said too, you told me a lot of my healing comes through my career. As
Mhm.
you know, a lot of healing comes through your relationships.
Yeah.
And I do have some practical ways of doing that, and it's not directly through relationships. It's going through your north node.
Oh,
And because as you know, your north node is here to guide you to find more fulfillment in every areas of your life.
yeah.
It's more in the house that it's in. But what I've noticed, if you start adapting those behaviors in that house, you start attracting more of what is really meant for you.
Yeah.
And so that makes me look at your north node. I see your north node is in Virgo in the fifth house. And so what that tells me is that you really need to express yourself and be yourself. And that way you could attract the right partnerships.
Mm.
So express yourself and be yourself, meaning You need to be able to, you need to take center stage because you're supposed to. You are supposed to be the center of attention, but you're supposed to do it in a detailed way.
Yeah.
You're supposed to do it in a um planned way and not giving up. So
Mm,
detailed plan and don't give up center stage.
that's good.
Yeah. And then if you, because I'm never going to say work on a man or work on focusing on man. Never focus on the relationship, never focus on the man. It's about focus on where you could be more of you. And then that way the right man could come. And
Mm,
so that's what I'm telling you on where you could focus on more of you so the
yeah.
right man could come. But
Mhm.
also that means you need to leave behind extremism because of Chiron and Scorpio. And you're talking about how you go in and out of astrology. I don't
Yeah.
know where else that plays out, but like extremism, um, giving up, as I already said, and daydreaming. So,
Daydreaming.
do you daydream?
I would say I'm a dreamer for sure, but I've been more practical, the last this year because of like, like you said, the extremes. I think now
Mhm.
I'm swinging back into the practical side of me.
Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I would say to focus on, to just be more full of who you are.
Yeah.
Like really enrich yourself with Selena, and then that way the right partner could show up in your life.
Yeah.
So that's what I got. What do you think?
Oh, that's amazing. I think the relationship part definitely like resonates as I'm kind of going through like my healing journey.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it's interesting that, throughout the 5 years when I was in a relationship, I just like never worried about that. And it was like all about career. Whereas like now I think it's kind of flipped a little bit where I mean, I'm still working on my career. I think that's still important,
Yeah.
but then I'm just seeing how like both sides play out and if how little career affects me versus how much a relationship could affect me. So that's been like interesting dynamics that I'm
Mhm.
experiencing emotionally.
Interesting. So you realized like how much your career, what was that at the very end? Like with
Yeah, I
the,
guess more so like relationships dynamics or just like relationships, partnerships in general affect me more emotionally versus like career. Like I don't really put like even while I took the sabbatical the last year, it I mean it definitely I've had moments of like feeling really down, but it didn't compare to like sometimes the hurt I would feel from, a relationship didn't working out. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was
makes
interesting.
sense. I mean, look at where all your healing energy's at. It's in relationships.
Yeah.
e- Everything, like everything that's important, like you said with me, everything that's important is in my career.
Yeah.
Everything that's important for you is in your relationships. So we're the exact opposite.
Yeah. How
That's
cool.
interesting.
Mhm.
Cool. No wonder why maybe we were like attracted to each other. We're like, oh, this person's interesting.
Yeah, probably like a opposites energy
Mm-hmm.
attract.
Yeah. So is there anything before we stop the recording? Is there anything that we should say, like to someone who watches this? What should they, or what did you take away from this? Actually, what did you take?
I would say just from what you read through my chart, it made me feel kind of more like at ease of knowing that everything we go through in this lifetime, sometimes you're just meant to go through those things and that it's totally normal. And it also gives us like a better perspective to like not compare ourselves. Like, if I compare myself to someone else's journey who has a completely different chart and different almost like destiny, you would feel so behind. But if you look at your chart as something that is so unique for you, you'll realize like you're always right on time. So I think that's a really helpful lesson when it comes to timing is like we look at time as, okay, if something happens sooner for this person, that means like they're early. But no, it was right on time for them. But for
Mm-hmm.
you, the right time might be, later compare like if we look at time as like just like a logical measure,
Mm-hmm.
but in space, it's like the right time for you. So just like
Mm.
looking at astrology as more of like a timing tool too. It's like sometimes you just don't know when things will happen, but they'll happen right on time for you.
Yeah. I know. I feel like seeing how my challenges are in my career and your challenges, your lessons, my lessons are in my career, your lessons are in the relationships, and we have that reverse. It made me realize that every single person is on a journey to heal something. We're all brought here to heal something. And sometimes, like you said, you look at them at their other life, at the other parts of their life, and you're like, wow, how'd they do it? But you did part of your life too that you're not healing on. So it's like we're all having these healing areas and we're all having these like areas where we really just thrive quickly.
Yeah.
And that's why coaches could help each other and that's why we could all help each other is
Mhm.
because we all have these different healing paths.
Yeah. So
So
powerful.
cool.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to stop the recording.